Not going over a cliff for you two.
Whoopi Goldberg joins Mary Louise Parker and Drew Barrymore on the road, away from their troubles and away from men, in Boys on the Side, a new drama that's just one of the movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel Ebert, along with an Irish fantasy and the latest horror film from John Carpenter, and a special report on the just concluded influential Sundance Film Festival founded by Robert Redford. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first film is Boys on the Side, and it creates three remarkable characters and puts them on the road together, but it's not a road picture. It's more like Terms of Endearment Goes West. The movie stars Whoopi Goldberg as a lesbian jazz singer who shares a ride to California with another young woman played by Mary Louise Parker, who seems to be a lot more conventional. In Pittsburgh, they drop in on Whoopi's old friend, played by Drew Barrymore, whose boyfriend is a violent drug abuser. After Barrymore whacks him on the head with a baseball bat, the women go on the lam. He seems okay when they leave him, but later they discover he has died.
You're going back. This is not a game.
I can't go to jail, not with a baby.
What baby, honey?
I'm 8 weeks pregnant.
What? You were going to bring a baby into that house?
Oh, like what were my options?
How about abortion?
I couldn't do that. I'd feel like a murderer.
Honey, you are a murderer.
Life grows even more complicated when the three settle in Tucson, Arizona, and Barrymore falls in love with a local cop, played by Matthew McConaughey.
Hold on, babe. You know that I'm still in uniform.
Isn't that cute? He takes it so serious.
Ah.
Meanwhile, Parker and Goldberg become close friends and talk about life and love. What Goldberg doesn't let Parker know is how much she likes her.
You never know the last time you sleep with somebody, it's the last time. You're thinking, oh, we got problems, we've got work to do, you know, but you never think. And then you break up, and a month later, you look back and you go, oh, that was it. That Tuesday or Friday or whatever. And you wish you paid attention.
Boys on the Side starts out as a kind of superficial road picture, but then it grows deeper and more gentle and tender, until at the end I was really surprised by how deeply I was moved. The performances are wonderful. This is Whoopi Goldberg's best work in years, and Mary Louise Parker has a couple of scenes that establish her as an important young actress. And then Drew Barrymore all but steals the show with her high-energy eccentricity. This is one of the best discoveries of the new year at the movies.
I liked it very much too, Roger, and I had the same reaction to it. It started out and I thought, well, this is going to be just a bunch of characters I've seen before, particularly Whoopi Goldberg as the soul mother to dumb white people, which she's fallen into that trap. But the movie really develops a tremendous amount of heart. And it's good, fresh writing. This is also a comeback film for the director, Herbert Ross, who was once very hot and really has fallen on lean times. He pulls together a real good story. The Terms of Endearment comparison is appropriate in terms of the emotional quality of the film. And there is one magnificent shot by the director at the end of the picture where he travels a room.
Yes, and it's empty.
And you see the emotions of the people that have occupied that space.
You know,
it's great.
amazing.
It's a great shot in a movie.
In my print review, I led my first sentence with a description of that shot because the room is empty now, the people have gone, and as you look, it's funny because I was really torn up by that shot, and I thought, this is amazing. He has developed these characters to such depth and to such emotional reality that the fact that they're no longer in this room really is having an effect on me.
You know you've spent time with people that you care about when you can't see them and you still remember them. Okay, next movie, and our next film is a real step down in class. It's Highlander, the final dimension, the third in the series, and there are signs, I think, that the audience is finally getting hip to the generally abysmal quality of sequels, and yet This Highlander opened fairly big last week. Well, let's see if I can close it. This is the action fantasy series about a Scottish warrior who has lived for centuries, who now faces a challenge from a creepy buried 400 years ago. Mario Van Peebles, looking a bit like a young black Jerry Lewis and talking like a method actor, plays the villain, and Christopher Lambert is the good guy, the Highlander. Each can kill the other only by cutting his head off.
Highlander's out there somewhere. And he owes me 400 years.
The love interest, and very little of it, is provided by Deborah Unger as an archaeologist who knows all about the Highlander.
You're Connor MacLeod. Born into the Clan MacLeod in Glenfinnan, on the shores of Loch Shiel.
Obviously, the film concludes with a mano, leading to a decapitato de la cabeza.
There can be only one.
I saw Highlander, the Final Dimension, with 13 other people last Monday night in a theater in Boston. I was getting paid. Why they stayed there, I'll never know. The filmmaking was shoddy. The wavy blue lines of energy that flow from victim to killer were straight out of a cheap horror picture. And Mario Van Peebles and Christopher Lambert were laughable without being funny. Thumbs down on what hopefully is the final installment of this Highlander series.
Boy, I hope so. These movies get worse and worse and worse. This one had me thinking back nostalgically to that one that had the shield around the earth.
Yeah,
remember?
Number 2, I think.
That's right, to collect the sun's energy. Without going into everything that's wrong with the movie, which is everything that there is in the movie, how about that last scene where once again the duel, the sword play, has to take place in one of these basic movie sets. It's a factory with flames and steam shooting out from everywhere as they run up and down the catwalks.
And no
that
workers.
is
And no
workers. Nobody there. What's the factory for? Who knows? That is the most overworked cliche in action pictures.
Absolutely. When we come back, a new film by John Carpenter. Remember, he made the great one, Halloween. This one is called In the Mouth of Madness.
I know this book will drive people crazy. Well, let's hope so.
Stephen King. Kane outsells them all.
So what happened to this cash cow of yours?
Kane disappeared 2 months ago without a trace. The police have turned up nothing.
Publisher Charlton Heston briefs investigator Sam Neill there about the disappearance of a famous horror novelist named Sutter Kane. The author in this movie is obviously inspired by Stephen King, and the problem is his new novel is driving its readers insane. That's the setup for In the Mouth of Madness, John Carpenter's new thriller. In a flash-forward scene early in the movie, the investigator is in a padded room, and psychologist David Warner is trying to debrief him.
Just because you know the symptoms doesn't mean to say your story is true.
It's Kane's story. And it'll spread with each new reader. That's how it gets its power.
Then the movie flashes back to how Sam Neill got that way after he joins with publishing executive Julie Carmen to go looking for the missing Sutter Kane.
A reality is just what we tell each other it is. Sane and insane could easily switch places if the insane were to become the majority. You would find yourself locked in a padded cell, wondering what happened to the world.
In the Mouth of Madness has an intriguing premise, but the movie blows a lot of possibilities and just goes straight for the gruesome special effects. I like the idea that a book could drive you mad, and I like the way the publisher didn't want to admit that because he was selling so many copies. This idea could have been turned into a wicked social satire, but instead the movie goes for ghouls and hallucinations and lots of shots of things that jump out at you from the edge of the screen, which is another tired cliche. It's too bad.
I'm glad you weren't sucked in by this one either, because I don't even know if the premise can work, Roger. I've seen so many pictures, not so many, but a few pictures where you're inside the movie. It's a movie that really get inside of it, and books that turn the readers crazy. And I haven't seen any of them work, frankly.
You know,
because you're always aware that the gimmick is sitting there. It's constantly reading gimmick, gimmick, gimmick.
Maybe the problem is that Stephen King didn't write this book, because if you look at Misery, for example, which is about a horror author who gets involved with one of his fans, that really did work on the page and on the screen. And here, the possibilities, it's kind of like a second-rate Stephen King story that King might have been able to do something more with.
Coming up, a special report on the influential Sundance Film Festival, but first we go to Ireland for a film of legend and magic. The Secret of Roan Inish is next.
after something?
I am.
It's plain as day.
Will I find it?
A little girl searches for her long-lost brother in our next film, The Secret of Roan Inish, and it's something special from writer-director John Sayles, who leaves the American landscape for the first time to fashion a lovely film about the myths in an Irish fishing village. The story really gets rolling in the late 1940s when the members of the Keneally family leave the island of Roan Inish and venture to the mainland. Natural forces, the gulls and the seals strike back, and a Keneally baby is washed out to sea. Later, the infant's sister, Fiona, played by Jenny Courtney, meets a cousin who will tell her a tale of a selkie, a mythical Irish creature that's half seal, half woman. And it's a legend that explains the Keneally's attachment to the sea.
All the islanders had seen Liam row out to sea alone. And now all saw his return with the strange girl.
As time goes on, little Fiona makes frequent trips to Roan Inish and finally encounters her baby brother, now a toddler, and not lost, but very much a part of the sea.
No, Jimmy! Don't go! It's your sister!
Actually, the story of the little boy is probably the least interesting part of The Secret of Roan Inish. It's overplayed, but what is special about the movie is the sense of time and place and magic that director John Sayles creates. As wild as the events are in this film, it all feels and looks real. It's the kind of story you want to believe is told in Ireland and maybe in fishing villages everywhere. This is an adult tale that creates a mood I don't think I'll ever forget.
You know, I agree with you. It is an adult story. And the moment you say, well, it's set in Ireland, it's about these simple people and a legend and a
yeah, they're not so
creature
simple,
that is
actually.
A creature that is half woman and half seal and so
Yeah.
forth. You begin to think of it as a fairy story or a children's story. And actually,
Leprechaun, yeah.
this is about the way they live. This is about their attachment to the land and their attachment to the sea. And you mentioned the way it looks. The cinematographer Haskell Wexler does a really good job of being able to establish how they relate to that landscape.
Well, you feel the weather.
Yeah,
I guess
yes,
that's
you
the
do.
way it comes
Yeah.
off the screen.
Yeah.
The other thing that I like is the little stories that we get. There's one boy who gets sick, and they put him between two cows to warm him up.
That was a great sequence.
That's a great sequence, and that's the kind of thing that I'm sure did happen, or if it didn't happen, it should have happened, and it's the kind of thing that would get passed down along the generations. A good picture.
It's an interesting film. When we come back, a look at this year's edition of Robert Redford's Sundance Film Festival, which has become crucially important for independent filmmakers. America's most important showcase for independent films, the Sundance Film Festival. Last week I attended the festival and met some filmmakers with remarkable stories to tell. It's awards night at Robert Redford's Sundance Film Festival, the payoff for this year's field of hopeful independent filmmakers who consider this festival in the small ski resort of Park City, Utah, as a cross between the Oscars and the Super Bowl.
Films like these, it's kind of like working off-Broadway. These are the people that are not afraid to take a chance. They're risk takers. They tell stories that aren't normally formulaic or geared toward making a lot of money in that commercial way.
Sundance started small, but has exploded into the world's most important showcase for films made outside the studio system. Unknowns have had their lives completely changed by success at this festival. Steven Soderbergh's Sex, Lies, and Videotape was launched here. So was Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs and Robert Rodriguez's $8,000 hit El Mariachi and last year's great documentary Hoop Dreams. All sorts of non-skiing types turn up, even old surfers like Brian Wilson, a former beach boy who performed in a local club to promote a new documentary about his life. Tickets?
Yes, we have 2 left. It's for a premiere. They're $10 each.
The first time I came to the Sundance Festival, it all seemed to fit into one motel and 2 screens out at the multiplex, but now it's grown into the largest and most important independent festival in the world, and the question is, has it grown too large?
This is a festival for the filmmaker, so we feel pressured to kind of increase capability for viewing, showcase, more screens, better equipment, better sound, but I don't feel compelled to join in the adding of hotels to them, because then you're going to lose quality. They asked me 10 years ago, I said, you know, I think I'm on a sleeveless errand. You know, there's a great line from Philip Berry Play says, you're on a sleeveless errand. So I was beginning to feel that, but now it's just the last 3 or 4 years that it feels like it's, so now I can start to feel good about it. But there was a while where I thought, this is tough.
Others say size has nothing to do with it. Sundance's real importance is as a showcase.
The growth of minorities in film, especially Latinos, has been done because of Sundance.
Our film is what they call a low-concept film in Hollywood, in that it's not an action film, it's about family. And so you need to start some interest in it to have it be successful when it's released. And Sundance is a perfect place to, you know, for this to happen.
I don't know what I'm doing here. It's sort of like staggering around from one film to another and one party to another, haven't slept in about 10 days, you know. I don't know. The distributor, Sony Classics, doesn't seem to think it's important at all. I sort of had to ask them if I could go. Now I don't know what I'm doing here.
This year, one of the young hopefuls at Sundance was Edward Burns, a 27-year-old from Long Island who was a former truck driver and production assistant for Entertainment Tonight. He came with his film named The Brothers McMullen. So low budget, he warned his actors they'd not only be working for no pay, but would even have to buy their own lunch.
A handshake will do for me, fruitcake.
Not for me, Doc.
You come here, nobody has heard of you, your film is a hit. Now every agent in town is calling you up in the middle of the night and wanting to be your representative. And I guess that's kind of the dream that people have when they come to Sundance.
We have our first screening, and it's, you know, my life has totally, you know, flip-flopped since then.
Burns recruited friends and family to help with the film, and they all came to Sundance. Burns himself plays a character in his own film, and his own girlfriend, Maxine Bonds, plays the character's girlfriend. The whole family pitched in.
You know, the house we shot the film in was the house I grew up in. So after the shoots, you know, my mom would cook her corned beef and cabbage, and the whole family, the whole cast would hang out with my family.
Well, my son introduced me to Robert Redford, and as I met him, he took off his hat, put his arms around me, and gave me a big kiss on my cheek. I told him I could die a happy woman now.
The big buzz in the documentary category was for Crumb, the dark, disturbing story of the underground cartoonist Robert Crumb and his tragic family. The movie was made over a period of 9 years by Terry Zwigoff, whose own problems sometimes seemed even worse than Crumb's.
I had some really bad problems with my back. I spent about 3 years off and on in bed with a loaded gun next to my pillow, trying to get the courage to kill myself, which in some weird way, I think, actually made this a better film. I think, again, made me closer to that family.
All week, the buzz continued, first for one film, then for another. No one had to be reminded the payoff for a win at Sundance is an enormous boost for your film and your career. Just ask Peter Gilbert, who was here last year with Hoop Dreams and announced this year's documentary winner.
It was really quite remarkable. That film is Crumb, directed by Terry Zwigoff.
I don't get a Mercedes with this, do I?
Then jury member Samuel L. Jackson named the Grand Jury Prize winner for Best Feature Film.
So we came together and decided that was one film that we did like enough that we thought was the best film of the festival, and we would like to present that award to the Brothers McMullen.
I also want to thank my family, my mother especially, who kept making me watch Annie Hall over the years.
The Brothers McMullen came to Sundance without even having a distributor, but after it had been shown 2 or 3 times, it was such a hit that it was snapped up by a distributor, and of course every agent was trying to get Burns under contract.
That's a great story, and Crumb, which I have seen, is a great film. I don't expect to see a better movie this year than Crumb. It'll have to be a heck of a picture. And I support any festival that awards a prize to pictures like Crumb. When we come back, we'll take another look at this week's movies and take a look ahead to next week's show. This week's new movies, let's recap the films we reviewed on this show. 2 thumbs up for director Herbert Ross's Boys on the Side with Whoopi Goldberg, Drew Barrymore, and Mary Louise Parker, a gutsy tearjerker. 2 thumbs down for the ridiculous sequel, Highlander, The Final Dimension. The only good news, that word final, it's billed as the last in the series. 2 more thumbs down for John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. And finally, 2 thumbs up for The Secret of Roan Inish, the lovely Irish fable from John Sayles. So Boys on the Side, and I'd say Secret of Roan Inish, again, for adults.
Yeah, good movies. Okay, that's it for this week. Next week, we'll be back with reviews of more new movies, including The Quick and the Dead, starring Sharon Stone as a Western gunslinger seeking revenge against a corrupt mayor played by Gene Hackman. And also the black comedy Shallow Grave, in which 3 roommates are faced with a sudden death and a suitcase full of cash. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.